Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. We got a full house tonight. Unfortunately, Steve won't be able to with us. He'll be with us tonight. He's spending some quality time with the wife. But we've got Robbie Jed Rains in the house from South Carolina. Everybody knows the often talked about and seldom seen Carrie Pocket Talk Davis. And we have a special treat for you guys tonight. A good friend of mine. He is a fantastic writer. Not only does he write cryptids, but he writes some pretty amazing stuff. If you guys have not checked out Heath Stallcup, check him out. If you guys enjoy my books, you're going to freaking love his. He's a fantastic writer, writes fast-paced, does action scenes like no other. You guys really need to check him out. Heath, tell us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know about you, and we will have your links up in the chat in just a second.
Okay. Heath Stallcup. I'm from southeastern Oklahoma. Went to the Navy after junior college. Did my thing, came back, went to school again for something else, and played around mostly in law enforcement of one kind or another until I finally retired. And somewhere along the way, I was basically challenged to write a story, and I did. And my wife liked it, convinced me to do something with it, and now 50 books later, here I am, 13 years into becoming an overnight success.
I like that quote. I heard that, what was it, Stephen King said that? It took me like 12 and a half years to become an overnight success or something like that. Yeah, I love that quote. And I'm still working on it myself. You know, I'm behind you, but I'm trying to gain on you. I got 35.
If you find out the secret, let me know. I appreciate it.
Trust me, I will share it. I will share it with all y'all. Well, brother, thank you for joining us. I think this is going to be an awesome show. We are picking up a little background interference. I'm not sure from where. I can't tell what it is. It almost sounds like a fan or an air conditioner.
Let me mute mine and see if it's
Okay.
me. I don't think it's me.
It ain't you, Doc.
Mute mine.
Heath, it ain't you. Where's it's coming from? I still hear it, and Robbie's muted, so let's see if it's me. Wasn't me. I don't know where we're picking it up from.
I don't hear it.
I can hear it on my headphone, but it may not be anything that's going to bother anybody. I can just hear it like in the background. So if it's not bothering anybody in the audience, I think we're doing fine.
We lost the egg. There you go.
Things are going nuts.
I don't
know what did that. Did somebody talk about that dang satellite? Is that what it was?
You got a poltergeist, brother.
So, how long have you been into cryptids?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Since I was a kid. I don't know. I was one of those weird kids that I believed the Loch Ness Monster was real. I believed Bigfoot was real. UFOs. And I don't know if it was a sixth sense or if it was just something that, little kids want monsters to be real. I remember at 5 wanting to grow up and be a vampire. And I was so excited when my baby teeth fell out and my canines came in. They were pointed. Oh, I was so thrilled. And then they didn't stay that way.
Think I'm going to be a werewolf.
Yeah. No, it's just something that's always stuck with me. And you go to college, you take like a wildlife biology or whatever, and part of what they use to count for population, they use tracks because you can't physically count each bobcat or each mountain.
Right.
So they use the tracks to help give them an idea what the population number is. So if tracks are viable for bobcat, mountain lion, bears, and turkey, why not for such?
I agree. I mean, yeah, you were in law enforcement. How many times have you put somebody away based on eyewitness testimony? But when it comes to Bigfoot, eyewitness testimony's out the window.
Yep. It's what they teach you in Fleet too. Is eyewitness testimony is not the best. It's always the stuff you can track, the physical stuff you can track.
So, like I said, like I told you backstage, I've read up to, I guess I'm about halfway through the third book of Genoskwa, the Genoskwa series.
Yeah.
Great series. So if y'all hadn't, like DA said, if y'all hadn't checked it out, I'll tell you, if you like DA's and my stuff, you're gonna love his, because it's out reading it. And usually when I read a book about the topics that we write about, I'm usually real critical, because I'm so used to reading DA stuff, and that's, I mean, the style he writes in is kind of the style I adopted. So I'm really super critical most of the time reading that stuff. Yeah. And I'm always like, I don't like that. But when I started reading yours, it was just like, I just fell right into it, and I didn't start nitpicking things apart. I was just like, I like the flow of it. I like how your character development on things. I like the take that you have given on the Genoskwa and the things that you had them doing, and you know, progressively from book 1 to book 3, the way that they've evolved, so to speak, and the way that, okay, they were this in this book, and they were a little bit more towards this in this book, and in this book they're completely, totally. I love the way you progressed it through those first 3 books, and it's been, especially knowing what you told us backstage.
Yeah.
The way things are supposed to go, to be able to take that, the notion you had for book 1, and then be able to add to that and build on it and make it still an enjoyable read and something that makes sense. Because I was totally on board with what you said. I was like, I don't see where it can go from here, but you took that and made it go in a sensible and feasible direction. And that's
book 4. You talk about going to 180. Wait till you hit book 4.
I feel like it's already started to make that turn. It just hadn't got there yet.
Oh, it makes a 180 for 3, but then it goes another 180 for 4.
Okay, cool.
I thought book 1 and 2 was bad. Book 4, it gets horrible. Hey, that might be why 12, 13 years ago when I started this, I was writing Monster Squad, and they were special forces fighting vampires, werewolves, gargoyles, whatever. And the publisher I had then told me, under no uncertain terms, do they hunt Bigfoot? Do not write about Bigfoot. Don't even entertain the idea of Bigfoot. And to me, Bigfoot was taboo. You know, you just don't do it. And for the longest time, I wondered, well, why? But I didn't wonder enough to actually look. Well, shoot, there's all kinds of books out there. Most of it fiction, like mine. And here I am. Of course, I'm with a completely different publisher now. And I asked her, I said, hey, would you have a problem with this? She was like, heck no, go for it. And I knew it was going to be a gamble, because in the back of my mind, I had that warning still going. You know, do not write about Bigfoot. And then when it came out, it was very well received. And thank you, Robbie. I'm hearing that from you. It really hits home. Even with the good reviews it's gotten, I still wonder, you know, the people like us who I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, you're a believer, but is it something that is believable?
Exactly.
Yeah. And there again, like I said, you know, coming from somebody who's had experiences, I've had experiences with these two knuckleheads beside us over here. I've had experiences by myself. I've had experiences with other people. And, you know, and starting out just being a fan, reading DA's books, and then, you know, progressing into writing my own, and then to read yours after that and have it kind of fall right in line with what we do. it was just like it's refreshing because you know, and I'm not gonna call any of the books out, but I've read. DL tell you, I'm always telling him, "Hey, have you read this? Check this one out. Check this one out." You
and sometimes I'll go, "Have you read this? Don't."
Yeah,
Yeah, I've run into those.
And it was the exact opposite with yours. I'm like, "Hey, have you heard of Genoskwa by Heath?" He's like, "Yeah, I know Heath." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Why?" I said, "Yeah, I've just finished book 2 of his series." I said, "It's awesome." He goes, "Well, maybe we need to get him on the show." I said, "That would be great."
You can blame Alan Gamboa because for me knowing Heath, I wouldn't have known him if it hadn't been for Alan. It's like, "Hey, do you know Heath?" I'm like, "No, not really." He's like, "Well, you got to check his books out. He's freaking awesome." I love Alan to death. He's a goober. I love that dude.
And that's actually because he and I are friends on Facebook too. And when I read the synopsis and it said his name on book 1, I'm like, "Wait a minute."
I'll tell you what. It's not the first time that I've asked people, "Hey, can I use you as a character?" And sometimes it's just because I like the sound of their name. Monty Smalls, he's one of the FBI agents. And the only reason we weren't friends on Facebook, but we were friends in a group, Alan's group. And I asked him if I could use him as a character, just so I could use the line, "You're killing me, Smalls." And he was like, "Hell yeah, go for it. Yeah, no problem." And
and that was in book 1. That was awesome. I love that.
Alan's a hell of a writer too.
But he's just like us, DA. He uses all these real world stuff just like we do. He does the exact same thing.
I'm of the opinion that a good story, is like building a house. The solid foundation is built in real world details. Yep. When all the real world details are correct, people will accept almost anything as a crazy plot as long as it rests on a solid foundation.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And one thing that I've always done especially when I've got a big cast of characters. Now, I knew these guys, but only online, right? So I didn't know their quirks. I didn't know their habits. What I do is I take a character and I base it on someone that I do know, and I do know well. And so, like Sherry Gabaldon, she's a character. I don't know Sherry personally. I don't know her. I don't want to say intimately because that's not what I'm getting at. But I don't know her well enough to know her personality. So I use her name, but I apply it to somebody that I do know, so that they've got the same habits, the same quirks, and it helps to keep the characters separated. They all have their own unique voice. They all have their own unique mannerisms. And, sometimes they get along, sometimes they don't. And sometimes you can just tell that they don't like each other, but they get along because they have to professionally. And
that Murray had a question for you. He want to know what book you would recommend for first-time reader.
Of mine?
Yeah, of yours.
Boy. Well, I can tell you the earlier stuff, it was well received, but I feel like I have matured a lot as a writer. If you want a one book standalone, even though it's a Christmas book, Ain't No Saint Nick. It's a ex-tier 1 operator that finds himself in a pretty unique situation. My little tagline for it was Hallmark Christmas, double dipped in Die Hard. And that is one of my few standalones that I could go back and reread, even though I wrote the damn thing.
Well, there you go. Try start with that one.
And if you don't want to do something that's pseudo-romantic, the first Genoskwa, it was meant to be a standalone book. And
very good book.
Well, I'm proud to hear you say that. Yeah, and I'm sure now that you can probably look back and tell that it was supposed to be a standalone.
Oh, if Miss Roxanne, or not Miss Roxanne, Miss Karen's in the group, I thought it was, because I told her, I said, "Here, you need to check this book out." After I finished it, so a couple days later, she's like, "That was great." She goes, "I'm halfway through the second one now," and I'm like, "Second one?"
Second one.
Where in the world did you go for after that first one? She goes, "Oh no, there's 4," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. And then I got burned out. Now I get emails almost weekly. People, "Hey, dude, when is book 5 coming out? You can't leave us hanging." Well, okay. Spoiler alert. The end of book 4 was pretty much the end of the battle. Book 5 starts with them licking their wounds. So that's out there. You can relax a little bit. Those who are hanging on, and I apologize. I know I get myself burned out, and the last time it happened, I am ashamed to admit it took me almost 3 years to get back to writing. But proudly, I can say I am more than a third, almost halfway through book 5. So it will be coming sooner rather than later.
Doc, check the private chat.
So pretty much every character from those books are either somebody you know or based on somebody you know, right?
In fact, Dale Archer, that's my skin doctor. I just always thought he had a cool name, and he's a really awesome guy. And when I asked him if I could use him as a character, he was like, heck yeah. So when I brought him the books, he's like, you said a character. And I said, yeah, well, you stuck around. You didn't die like the others. He was floored.
And that's another thing that I admire is, you know, I undoubtedly assumed, which I'm sure a lot of people did, that Gamboa was the guy that was walking out at the end of.
Yep.
And it surprised the hell out of me that he was not the one that walked out.
Yeah,
I was like,
me too.
Whoa. And that's something, you know, DA's got the balls to do that, to axe a main character. I haven't got that ballsy yet in mind.
Dude, I have gotten straight up hate mail from some of the characters I've killed.
Yeah, I had to.
I had a guy. Well, I did a convention appearance in Kansas City at a convention called Conquest. Well, when it was announced I was going to be there, this dude booked the show and drove up from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Kansas City, Missouri, to argue with me about killing a character.
Yep, I can.
What if we called you, DA? We've called you the George R.R. Martin of cryptids, right? Don't get attached. If you like a character, don't get attached to him.
Yep.
We've also called him the Tom Clancy.
That, yes.
Heath, I got a question for you, and these two jokers are going to know right where I'm leading with this. Okay. Have you ever written a character that just took on a life of its own and you can't explain it?
Yes. Okay. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Mark Tufo.
Okay. I know Mark.
Okay. He, when I was first getting started, he was the guy I wrote to because I liked the way he wrote. And my wife's like, this guy is cut from the exact same cloth as you. Same oddball sense of humor. The only thing is you're not a germaphobe and he is. And I thought, man, if I ever got to meet him, I was going to use that. But I didn't. Anyway, in one of the books, I needed a character name. And I emailed Mark. I said, hey, can I use you as a character? Well, he didn't email me back. And I thought, well, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it anyway. And the book was published when he emails back. Sure, man, be fun. If you kill me off, make it a Viking funeral. I was like, okay. He was supposed to be a bit character, you know, half a chapter, in and out, gone. He ended up running the damn place. If you've ever read Monster Squad, he ends up second in charge, and it wasn't intended. It really wasn't. The character took on a life of its own, and every time I thought I had a way to get him gone. All right, let me just back up and explain. I am not someone who plots. I am definitely a seat of the pants writer. I have to know the beginning. I have to know the end. And once I know the beginning and the end, the story tells itself. And I am just as shocked as the readers.
You've got to let the characters tell the story, because if you don't, it's forced. It sounds mechanical. You know, people are like, why would that happen?
Exactly. And one of the back in the Monster Squad days, I had a character that, okay, this seems crazy to me. He's going to escape. Well, damned if he didn't get caught again as the story went on. And I'm like, why? And my wife, just trust the process. Because I tell her, it's like I'm channeling the story. I'm just typing it.
My wife almost the same thing.
Yeah. One of my buddies at work the other day explained it the best way that I've heard it explained. You may have said something about this before, DA, but he and I were talking about it. And he said, let me ask you a question. I said, what? He said, do you sit down and you write an outline and have all? I said, no. I said, I have a general idea about where the story starts and kind of where I want, you know, the vague general direction that I want it to go. I said, but I'll just sit down and write the story as I go. He goes, you're a storyteller.
Yep.
I
said, and I kind of thought back, I was like, then it hit me. He's like, no, you're a storyteller. He said, you don't sit down and plan everything out beforehand, then write it. He said, you tell the story.
Yep.
And he said, and I love it. He said, because and a lot of it, he was like, number one, you're my friend. Number two, I know the area that you wrote the book in. He said, but he said, it's easy to get lost because he's got another writer that he likes too. And I can't remember what he said the guy's name was, but he said, but you can tell that it's a methodical, thought out, planned out story that has intentionally goes from here to here to here to here to here. He said, but with yours, it just feels like you're just kind of on a river, just kind of.
It flows. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, I enjoyed that. Made me feel good because that's.
I would much rather be a storyteller than an author.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Doc, you're awful quiet.
I'm just listening to y'all. I'm not a writer.
Oh,
I beg to differ, sir. You've got some articles published in magazines there, buddy boy.
Well, Pete says, I've been rereading for the third time the Apex Predator series, and I'm planning on going to check out the pizza cellar in Rockaway Beach, Missouri from the series. It's less than an hour away. Rockaway Beach, that little hole-in-the-wall pizza place, probably has the best pizza in Southwest Missouri. I mean, it is just absolutely fantastic. So if you're ever anywhere near Branson, Missouri, take the jog over to little bitty Rockaway Beach and eat at the pizza cellar. It's worth the drive just for the breadsticks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Lisa, thank you for becoming a channel member. I do that. I like to throw like real world restaurants into the book.
Yep.
That the characters show up. Like there's a place in Eureka Springs, Arkansas called the Rockin' Pig Saloon. Had to throw that in there.
Oh,
and last time I was in there, they were like, "Hey, you're the guy that wrote that book about this place, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." It was really kind of cool.
When I was doing Back to the Monster Squad, there was a scene where they were in an air base, I think, in Italy, and I'd never been there. But what do? I go on Google Earth and look at it, and then I try to get like the street view of different places, the mountains off in the range, and just the lay of the land, the buildings, the structures, the businesses that I can use. Anyway, I used it in maybe 2 sections of 2 different chapters. The guy was only there for a short time. I had a guy email me. He said, "Man, when were you stationed there? I was there from this to this. Were we there at the same time?" And I was like, I was there with Google. I never left the desk. He's like, "Oh, geez, the way you were describing it, I thought you were there. I lived there for 2 years." That made me feel.
I try to go to places that I'm writing about. A lot of places I write about the places I've been, or I will try to make a trip there and walk the area because it's to walk the area. It's kind of tough to describe something unless you felt it. But I have a number of times. Well, there was one of the books I wrote was set in Argentina, and I did all the landmarks and everything by Google Earth on that.
Well, you kind of have to.
Yeah, my travel budget didn't allow for Buenos Aires.
Yeah, unless you're like Clive Cussler or something, you get like $1 million advance. Then, let's go to Milan.
Yeah.
I can write it. We'll write it off our taxes and say it was
exactly. But God rest his soul, Clive Cussler. He was a great writer. But tomorrow, if Stephen King woke up with my book sales tomorrow, they'd find him hanging from his shower curtain.
Yeah, amen. I hear that. Let me ask: Have you put any of your stuff on Kindle Unlimited?
I think everything we put it on Unlimited. Everything I put out.
We tried that in the past, and I really think that the best we had in 1 month was like 500 pages, which is they pay you like 1/10 of a penny per page.
Yeah,
and,
you really got to get a lot of pages for it to add up.
You do, and with Genoskwa, Tracy, she's Mark's wife, she's my publisher. She decided to do some ads, and she put Genoskwa on Kindle Unlimited because something she saw, it gave her a gut feeling. And I probably shouldn't be talking numbers, but I'm gonna. And oops, if I'm not supposed to, she can smack my hand later. I don't remember if it was the first month. It might have been the second month. She was like, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "I'm always sitting down. I'm a little lazy. I got bad knees. I'm always sitting." And she said, "Okay, what was the best numbers we had on page reads?" And I think we had 500 1 month. And I was thinking, "Oh, geez, we got like 1,000 or 1,500 pages. 100,000 page reads in 1 month on one book. And then that spurred me. That was like, Yahoo, we got to get these written. So 2 came out and then 3. And once 3 was out and it had a full month on Kindle Unlimited, between the 3 of them, we hit 500,000 pages written.
Nice.
That was the peak. I mean, that was the peak. And I was just floored. 500,000 pages of my writing. That was, that's the closest I'll come to a Stephen King movie as far as sales.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
And what's sad is, okay, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get yelled at for this. But Stephen King's not that good a writer.
I agree. His stuff before the accident, before he got hit by that van, his stuff before was better. His new stuff's like he's phoning it in.
The guns, well, yeah, he doesn't have to invest now. I mean,
he could write his name on a Tic Tac box and it'd sell a million copies.
He could publish a shopping list and have 500 5-star reviews. And
oh yeah,
and I like Stephen King, but you really have to. You can't zone out when you're reading anything that he's written anyway. Because if you just zone out for a half a second, you're going to miss
you're lost.
Yeah, you're lost. You have to go back and reread like 30 pages prior to where you zoned out to catch back up, and that I don't like that. I mean,
thank you, Wyatt.
I mean, it's just he's got some good stuff. I mean, I agree with DA. His older stuff I like that better.
Yeah, I appreciate any man who can dream up the circumstances of his stories. Carrie. Oh my God, Christine. I still get goosebumps. Of course, I'd kill for that car. But
oh yeah, who wouldn't?
No joke. Pet Cemetery. I'm just the idea of burying something and it comes back, twisted as it may be. That's why he will always be considered the father of horror stories. He comes up with original ideas, and I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you're just regurgitating this," like Sinful. That was a standalone book I had. It was a kid that was in a car accident. When he wakes up, anybody he touches, he sees, either the worst thing they've done or the worst thing that they're planning to do. And it almost drives him crazy. And he ends up hunting people down. He becomes a predator. But Stephen King had a story very similar to that, where a guy ended up assassinating the president because the guy was going to start a nuclear war. I hadn't seen that movie. I hadn't read that book. Here I thought I had an original thought. No, apparently everything's been written. So,
they say there's really only like 11 basic plot lines.
Yeah.
And it's all just variance in character.
And my English teacher said if you break it down even further to the most basic of basic, I think there was 3, and the biggest one.
Man versus man, man versus self, and man versus nature.
Yeah. Then it all comes down. You can break that down. Good versus evil.
Yeah, and most all follow the hero's quest.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really look at it, like DA said, and you break it down, yeah, everything probably has been touched on at some point or another in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
It's hard to have something truly groundbreaking and original, especially now with AI and all that.
Don't get me started on AI.
Yeah. I'm sure you two have the same problem I do. If you turn on YouTube or pick up your phone, because you write books, that's all the ads you see.
Yep.
Is this AI thing writes your books for you. Just give it a few lines and it'll write a whole book for you. And I'm like,
that's not writing.
No,
you're not writing anything.
Nope.
But how many people do that though? Just to get an easy paycheck from Amazon. That drives me up the wall.
I'll be the first. There was one Scribbler when I saw the ad, and I thought, okay, you know what, you can do a free trial. So I did, and I thought I was pretty doggone specific in the idea box you give it, and I read like the first 7 or 8 pages, and I was floored. I was like, damn, I wish I could write this good. And I told the missus about it. So I went ahead and finished filling out everything so I could get the whole thing. Well, it does write really well, and then it repeats it, and it repeats it, and it repeats it. It uses different words, but it tells the exact same thing. Oh, here comes such, and they're going to be in trouble in this. And then it goes into 40 pages of backstory and description. And wait a minute, somebody was beating on the door, 12 pages ago. Have you forgotten that? Well, it does. It forgot all about somebody beating on the door. And the more I read, the more disenchanted I got with it. And I told her, I said, I don't even like the free. It would take me longer to rearrange and fix this to feel comfortable about calling it mine than it would to just write the damn thing myself.
I'd prefer just writing it myself.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that once word gets out, this is AI generated.
Oh, I think we lost Heath. He's there. He froze up.
He is.
Oh, there he is. Oh, nope. Okay.
Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope.
Yep. There, we got him back. We lost you there for a second, man. You froze up.
Oh, sorry. It's
No, you're fine.
probably the internet. So much for that fiber optic, huh?
Damn satellites.
Yeah. It's that black night. It's interfering with everything.
We say that all the time. Every time we've ever talked about the Black Knight satellite, we start having technical problems.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
It's
just wait.
literally that satellite.
I didn't even know about the damn thing until AJ did one on Y-Files about it. And I was like, seriously? This thing's been up there since before Sputnik? And we didn't send nobody up there to look at it. We have
that they're willing to admit.
there.
Yeah.
They know it.
I guarantee our government's taking a look at it.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
Place your bets, DA, because I went into the private chat and look, I guarantee you I'm going to lose my sound tonight. What you want to bet?
I ain't
Probably. Usually about once a show, we lose Robbie's sound. Don't know why.
I'll be sitting here talking, and Doc's like, and DA's like, we lost you. And I'm like,
And it only happens to him.
yeah, just me.
Somewhere is a little mouse that looks like Jerry that's unplugging stuff, plugging it back in.
Yep.
Yeah, what does this one do?
Yeah. Yeah, I need to. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so have you had a cryptid experience?
No. I wish.
I mean, you live right in the heart of cryptid territory. You're down in southeast Oklahoma, dude. I set codename Wild Hunt there for a reason.
Yeah. Well, part of it is, okay. Before I went in the military and then while I was in the military, I had a heat stroke. When I was hauling hay during, we had like a heat wave going on. People were dropping dead under air conditioners. And I'm a teenager up there hauling hay. And I had a heat stroke. Got in the military and had another one. So with two of them under my belt, I'm very, very sensitive to temperatures. If it gets over 70 degrees and about 60% humidity, I'm cooking. I can't stop sweating. Now, is that an excuse? No. Truth is, I'm fat and I'm lazy and I don't like hiking. And that's the only way you're going to go out and get in a place where you can see a Bigfoot.
Well, if you come up here sometime and go with us, we're all old and lazy and we don't want to hike long distances, but we've got some places we can get you either by boat or by car that is right in the middle of it.
That's what I need. I wanted
As long
to
as Doc's driving, trust me, we'll get out there quick.
Well, there you go. That's what I need. We talk about getting like a side-by-side or a four-wheeler or something and pulling it behind the Hummer, behind the Jeep or something and going off in the woods. We're going to call it camping with the hopes of seeing something. You never will. It's always when you least expect it that you have the encounter. But it's one of those when is the temperature right where I'm not going to have a heat stroke? When is I can come up with 40 excuses, but the fact is I just haven't yet. I still plan to, and I still want to, and I pray that the good Lord lets me before he takes me. Even if I don't see anything, I want to get out into the bush where they are known to exist. Now,
you find your way up, find yourself up this direction. I'll get you out there, even if it's in the air conditioning in the car.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
I can take you some places we can drive straight to, and these two boys can tell you they are in the butt crack of nowhere, but you can get there by car.
Good.
If you look at
That's
Jeremy
pretty
Lee's comment, that pretty much describes us. The cryptid
Yeah.
magnets.
DA takes you to all of the best murdery places.
Go out there with
Look, there's the little dollhouse. Nope.
You want to stop by the cannibal house? Nope.
My cadaver dog is going nuts in the back seat. Where are we?
Have y'all not ever seen a horror movie? Don't split up.
Don't hide.
Yeah, we don't split up. But we're too old and fat to run.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
some
why
of us still keep walking off, even though we're old and fat.
That's why we've assigned the youngest and most in shape of us to be the Robbie Wrangler.
I'm gonna get him a damn shot collar next time.
Robbie tends to wander off.
He goes beyond the boundary.
You get more than 10 yards from Doc, it just shocks the crap out of you.
That's far enough, Robbie.
make sure you pack some extra Depends because he's gonna be feeling that thing. I made a mistake of touching one of them damn shock collars, and I thought, my God, is that really how much juice it hits a dog with? And the old boy finally told me, nah, I monkeyed with it. It's a little hot. No joke. It was more than a little
It's
hot.
got a little bit of a bite to it.
Oh, and my brother, growing up, we grew up on a cattle ranch. We had cattle prods, and they got the two. There you go. James has got it. It's got the two prongs on that cattle prod, and he's like, "Yeah, that really sucks. You got to hit them with both. If it slips and only one touches, it don't shock them." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, grab one." And like a dumbass, I grabbed one. He hit that button. I about pissed myself. I got him back though. I waited till we had cows we had to milk by hand. I waited till he was done. I raced around here, got him at the top of the coin slot. I almost wore a milk bucket going home. It was worth it.
Oh, that sounds like some of the crap we did. My nephew, one time, I was working on a lawnmower, and he was standing watching me, and it was running. And I said, "You shut that off for me?" And I just meant reach up the handle and kill, hit the kill switch. And he goes, "Well, how do I shut it off?" And I couldn't resist. I said, "Just grab that coil wire right there and pull it off."
Oh shit!
He didn't trust me after that.
No, I wouldn't either.
He's the same kid that we convinced that cattails were wild corn dogs.
Oh, my
Took a big old bite of one and went to spitting seeds.
She gets stuck up in your gums, and yeah.
Oh, he was pissed.
Spitting feathers forever. Oh, yeah, I wasn't quite that gullible, but I did decide I was going to see what it was. Snapped one. No more. That's all it took. Well, there's parts of those things that are supposed to be edible.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Just
what
not
it is.
that big long brown part.
Yeah, just not the bit at the end.
Not corn dog.
We were horrible growing up. It's amazing we didn't kill each other off.
Well, we lived in a time before the warning labels were 3 chapters long.
fact.
Yeah, most of your warning labels were, trial and error.
No,
That didn't work. No, don't do that.
there's a lawsuit behind that warning.
Our actions resulted in the warning labels.
I once saw an old boy go to check his oil, and he put the dipstick down where he could see it, and he laid it across both battery terminals. You ever see somebody chuck a dipstick across the yard?
Oh, shit.
Shoo!
That thing went flying.
I grew up on a cattle ranch. And
Lucky you didn't spot weld it to the battery.
say again?
I say, lucky you didn't spot weld it to the battery.
That's what I was about to say. I use baling wire to tie the batteries down, and some of the pastures get a little rough. And I come back and I can see smoke coming under the hood. I popped it up, and the battery had slid up against the terminal, and the other end just happened to be touching the other one. And like a dumbass, I reached over there to move it. About the time I grabbed it, it's when it turned red, and I branded a line across my thumb. It was there for about 15 years.
Good Lord.
I went to take a battery out of a truck one time and the positive terminal up against my finger and my wedding ring up against the side of the truck.
Ooh. Ooh.
Okay.
I couldn't wear my wedding ring for about a month.
Well, we're telling stupid shit on ourselves.
My dad's still laughing at how the first time I ever jumped a starter, because instead of having a hold of all the big plastic wire, my thumb was touching the metals when I arched it back.
That'll wake you up.
Oh yeah! First time I ever cussed in front of my dad, and he's like I said, he's still laughing about it. Son of a bitch!
Hey, buddy. I was in ag. We had to go welding, metal shop. And our ag teacher used to get onto us for spitting in the water troughs. And we always get down. We always had a dip or two or something. So it was hot. You know, it dried up quick. I was spitting in the floor, just kind of rubbing it with my foot, not thinking nothing of it. And I'm welding on something. I don't even remember what it was. And I also don't remember why my hands was full. I grabbed, I grabbed a welding rod with my teeth. I was holding it in my teeth, and about the time that stinger touched the end, I welded that son of a bitch to the end of the filling. Now, lucky for me, I was able to twist it off, and I kept the filling in my teeth. But you want to know something? You can feel electricity go through your bone marrow, because my feet were soaked from rubbing that concrete, trying to get rid of that snuff. I was done for the day.
I bet.
After that. Now that's
you seen those old movies where they light up blue?
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Oh Jesus, that hurt.
Why am I getting Home Alone 2 vibes where he grabbed a hold of the?
That's how it felt.
Talk about a brain spike.
It's amazing we survived some of the stupid shit we pulled when we were kids. That's where I'll leave it.
Oh yeah, I could spend a whole show talking about dumb crap I did as a kid.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said earlier, we are the reason for the warning labels.
Yes, we are.
Yep.
I have no doubt about that. Though I've yet to try to make toast in the bathtub.
And we're also the generation that could go inside with blood running down your arm, and your mom's going to put methylate on it and a Band-Aid and send your ass back outside.
Or Mercurochrome. Don't forget that.
Mercurochrome.
Yep, monkey blood.
Camphofenique. That stuff burnt like hell.
It did. Oh, screaming. Well, when I had my heat stroke, I didn't go to a doctor. Dad called and he said, "What do we do?" And the doctor started in yelling, "What kind of parent lets their teenage haul hay in this kind of weather? People are dying under air conditioners." And that was the first time I heard my dad lose his religion on the phone. He said, "Look, so-and-so, tell me what to do. The damage is done. What do we do?" And I was literally floating in a tub of cold water with a glass of iced tea. That doctor told him, says, "Do not let him get in a cold shower. Don't let him drink nothing cold. Make him sweat. Wrap him up in the blanket and make him sweat." He kicked open that bathroom door and jerked me out of that tub by the hair of my head. I was just starting to feel normal. And I was screaming, butt-ass naked, dripping water. He threw me down. My dad, you got to keep in mind, I was 6'1", probably 200 pounds. My dad was about 5'9", 150, sopping wet. But he was made of freaking shoe leather. And he threw me down, wrapped me in electric blankets. So the doc says, "You got to sweat." I said, "The doc, I'm done sweating." And no, he held me down until I started sweating. Then he let me crawl back in the bathtub. But that was, what was the point of that sweat?
Doc, you look perplexed.
I am. I just wondering what medical school that doc went to.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Might have just been trying for me for being stupid.
We had healthy dudes dropping like flies from my first deployment in the Middle East. I mean, young studs, tiger meat and piano wire, and they just drop them like flies.
Heat's a great equalizer, man.
Man,
Yes, it is.
He don't give a damn who you are.
132 degrees with no humidity, man. That'll suck every bit of moisture out of you got.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where if you notice you're thirsty, it's too late.
Oh, yeah. You done make
So they
grandma.
had the little color charts in the urinals, didn't they? Or did they?
I still judge my hydration levels by the color of my pee.
Yeah.
As you should.
Is it supposed to be brown and lumpy?
Why does this look like sweet tea?
Yeah.
Oh man, I got black tar heroin again.
Yeah. It ain't supposed to be chunky, is it, Doc? No.
There's something else going on besides dehydration when you
Yeah.
You got some big problems.
Yeah. If you're peeing
Doc,
dust,
what's it mean if I sweat and it ain't salty?
I remember coming in from the parade field with the backs of our uniform white.
I remember that in your boots. Your boots would have all those white creases across of them from salt stains. That in your uniform, yeah.
Harry Cole says, Doc, what should you do?
For heat stroke,
Yeah.
get them cool. Get them cool. The immersion, packing the junctions with cold packs, and then the junctions, I mean the base of the neck, the armpits, and the groin, because there's a lot of arterial circulation there, and that'll act like a heat sink. But you want to be very cautious with this, because the old wives tell, oh, they're not going to be sweating. Dude, people can be sweating like meatloaf in concert and still still have heat stroke. All right. So
I love your analogies, Doc.
Thank you.
You ain't wrong.
Yeah, and a core temperature is the most accurate way to check the temperature. If somebody's over 104, they're in danger. They're in the, as Archer would say, danger zone. So they're in the danger zone, and so if they hit 105, you're going to start looking at seizures and things like that. So get them cooled down as quickly as you can. If they are conscious, cool fluids are okay, and that core temperature. And if y'all don't know what a core temperature is, that's where right up Main Street. Okay, that's the most accurate measure. The old silver bullet. That's the old measure, accurate measure of a core of a temperature on a human being. So once it gets down to 102, stop cooling it, because then the body's absorbing that thermal energy, whether it's cold or whether it's hot. It's absorbing that energy, and they're going to continue to cool down. And then if you cool them a lot longer, well, then they're going to get hypothermic, and they're going to start shivering. They're going to go on a thermal roller coaster ride, and that's just going to suck.
And I don't care if it is on ice. Don't give them alcohol.
No.
Yeah, no, don't do that, please, dear Lord. But yeah, that's the current methodology for that, because we took care. I mean, out here in Colorado, we've taken care of several heat stroke people. Like this one, they were 17, 18-year-old. They were working on a ranch, and it was like 102 out here, and no humidity, and I mean, it's drier than a popcorn fart. You know what I mean? And so these kids come in the ER. 106 and 107 core temperatures. They did not do well.
They were fried.
Yeah, they were
Poor kids.
Yeah. So yeah, man, just be careful. Be careful. Cool them down. And if they're cold, warm them up. And if they look dead and they're cold, warm them up.
Yep.
Because they ain't dead, they're cold and dead. I've seen that twice. I've actually taken care of 2 patients like that. So yeah, man. All right, that's all I gotta say about that.
Heath, whenever I'm writing a scene, it's a high combat scene. If I need a character to survive, I call Doc. I'm like, all right, this is what I did to him. How do I save him? And sometimes he'll go, you're going to have to rewrite the scene because this dude is good and truly screwed. He ain't coming through this. And
we have literally rewritten scenes on the phone together. And he was like, what do you think? He'd send it to me and read it, and I call him, he's dead, dude.
He did.
One time I did send him one. I said, I need this to be fatal. He goes, well, I'm telling you right now, it's well and truly fatal. Ain't nobody surviving that.
This parrot is no more.
It ceased to be.
I may have to get Doc's phone number then, because
Doc's a great
Heath,
Doc's
don't
a
worry.
great source for that, man.
Well, I mean, me and Robbie have done that. Me and Robbie have talked about that stuff.
I
I've never
got him. I
gotten.
said, "Hey, does this work as a bullet?" He's like, "Absolutely not. You need to do this, and this."
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's what we were talking about bullet calibers the other day.
Mhm.
5.7 for armor piercing and 10 millimeter for if you miss it, the wind will knock them over. But no, I've never on my battle scenes. I don't think I've ever had anybody so wounded that it's like, well, could they survive? Usually, my heroes come out unscathed. They're like Archer. Hey, very lucky. He'll have bullet holes in his suit, but none in him.
Ain't nobody got plot armor in my world.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure.
Trust me, DA. There ain't a lot of plot armor in his either. I mean, you ain't surviving usually when one of them things grabs you by the top of the head and
No.
Pulls you up a tree.
Treat you like a long neck screw top.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from experience, Heath, there's been more than one time when Doc has got a 2 a.m. Hey, fucker, you awake? I wrote myself into a corner.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah.
Which usually runs into about a 2-hour phone call while he helps me fix shit.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, Heath, if you ever, DA's got my info. So, yeah, feel free, brother. Email and phone and everything. He'll give it to you. And if you ever need some technical advice, I'll be happy to do it.
Cool.
I work his Dark Angel kits into my books because
sweet.
they're real world kits, man.
Yeah. Well, and in Monster Squad they were using 5.7 because it is armor piercing for the monsters that have thicker skin. But where are you going to get a silver bullet? So a buddy of mine, who is Jay Wolf, he's got Elite Ammunition. He makes some pretty badass 5.7 ammo, and he made me up some silver rounds. They were just turned aluminum, I think, but he sent them to me empty. There was no, he busted in. They were empty cartridges with no primer, so I turned them into necklaces, and that was one of my props, one of my giveaways.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was interesting when he told me, "Hey, I'm making silver bullets. You want some?" And I was like, "Wait, real silver bullets?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I'm going to tell a little story here. When I was at the sheriff's office, and this is while I was writing Monster Squad, and the guys were ribbing me about it because you're writing about werewolves and monsters and vampires. Oh.
I sympathize with you. Trust me.
I say again. I'm sorry.
I said I sympathize with you. Trust me.
Yeah. Well,
I got the same idiots making fun of me when I first started too, and now they're seeing my book sales and they're like, "Hey, can I get one of them?" Oh, sure. Get on Amazon. You can get one.
Oh, the guys that were ribbing me, they're like, I won't read. I'll wait till it's a movie. Yeah.
But you may be waiting a while.
Yeah, long.
Hollywood ain't calling.
No, they'd rather redo Ghostbusters for the 15th time.
Yeah.
Anywho, no, there was a guy from the tribal police there. He was an older man. I'd say he's probably in his late 50s, early 60s. And they were ribbing me about it, and they went on and did their thing, and he just kind of sidled up. He's like, "So you're writing about shapeshifters?" And I said, "Well, yeah, kind of, all kinds of stuff." And he said, "Back in the day, we were required to have 5 bullets of silver in one magazine." And I was like, "Really?" And he kind of does this, and he reaches behind him, he pulls out a magazine, pops out 3, and the next 5 are silver. He wasn't kidding.
Damn.
And I was like, "Seriously?" And he said that back in the old days, the elders, they still believed in skinwalkers and stuff, and the only way to stop it was with a silver round. And he, even though it wasn't required, he still carried it, and that kind of anchored something for me, where I didn't care if people ribbed me about it, because there's a reason those stories have existed for centuries.
Exactly.
Yeah. And hey, Heath, what tribe was that, man?
It's either Chickasaw or Choctaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I told you.
Because
That's who we had to-
I taught a class for the Miami tribe down there.
Yeah, I think the Chickasaws originally came from that area. They were part of or maybe that's a Shawnee, originated in Florida.
I think it was the Chickasaw.
Was it the Chickasaw?
I think it was the Chickasaw.
But they originated there. They branched off, became their own thing, and then. But yeah, no, he was serious. I mean, obviously serious. He had 5 rounds in that one magazine. I thought it was a 45. So.
Got 45.
So, Heath,
sir?
what is your favorite book that you've written?
Oh, don't do that to me.
People ask me that all the time, and I don't know how to answer, so I thought I'd throw you the bone.
Okay, look, I've got over 50, and a lot of them are series books. You know, Caldera had 12, Monster Squad had 10. Before we split it, Whispers was one of my favorites. It was a modern Western, Vengeful Ghost. It was one of my favorites. Genoskwa would be tied with it, but if I had to put one above all of them, that's got to be Ain't No Saint Nick. And I think because I had that idea in my head for so long, and it wasn't until, actually, I think it was Halloween, I kept thinking about it. It was all based on a picture of Santa Claus in this red jumpsuit, packing, you know, he had his tactical vest and packing an M4, and I saw that picture and I was like, that's what
Santa delivered to Chicago, I see.
Yeah, he had to. But after I wrote that between Halloween and Thanksgiving, and I wasn't sure if it was going to fly or not. But I fell in love with the characters, with the town. I wrote to the sheriff and asked him. I said, "Look, you know, I'm wanting to base it in your county. Can I use you as a character?" He's like, "Hell yeah, go for it." And I apologized to him in advance. You know, if anything that you the character lets my main character get away with makes, you know, shines you in a bad light. He was like, don't worry about it. He was really cool about it. That would have to be my top favorite is Ain't No Saint Nick. After that, it would be the Whispers trilogy and Genoskwa 1. They're tied, and they're a real close second to Nick. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed writing most all of them. There was a time in Caldera, probably about book 5, where, man, every word was like pulling teeth. I had to force myself to sit down and write. And a lot of times I'd get so angry with myself, I'd have to go back and read 2 or 3 chapters just to remember the stuff I had thought about. Did I write it or did I not put it in there? Did I or didn't I?
Find myself doing that a lot.
Well, people that seemed like the books that was the hardest for me to write was the ones that were the best received. People loved them. And if that still holds true, then Genoskwa 5 is going to be a bestseller because it has been like pulling teeth to get me to sit down and write. That is a tough question, though. And
here's another tough one for you. Have you ever become so emotionally invested when you killed a character off that you had to take a break? What the heck? What the heck is going on?
We shouldn't have mentioned the Black Knight, I'm telling you.
What's happening?
It's that poltergeist.
Yeah. But have you ever gotten so emotionally invested in a character that when you killed the character off, you had to take a break?
Yes. And what's funny is, all right, like I said, Caldera is a 12-book series. Right? After book 3, I introduced the main bad guy. You know, you got to imagine after the volcano goes, it's like a post-apocalyptic Earth, right? About 90% of the people have already been infected with this rage virus. But this guy is a brown liquor alcoholic leader of a motorcycle club, an outlaw motorcycle club. and he's the main bad guy. And by the end of the series, I finally killed him off, but he had done a 180. And everybody, it was gradual over like 2 or 3 books. And even the readers, I've gotten more emails from readers saying, I can't believe that you got me to get that emotionally invested in Simon, the bad guy. And I was like, hey, I was right there with you. And my wife said, hey, he had to die in order to make up for all of his evil in the past. But in my mind, no, he really didn't. He'd made up for it. So, yeah, killing Simon was one of those bittersweet. I had to step away and really think about, do I want to kill him? Does he have to die? But that's the way the story came out. That's the way the story wrote itself. So I let it ride. And it got a lot of very emotional responses from people.
But it's like that was like with my Ragnarok series, my zombie series. I knew from day one opening sentence how that series was going to end. And it turned out to be a 10-book series, but I knew in the end the main character was going to die. And I just had to get the story there. And it made it there. And when I finished that 10th book, when I wrote the final death scene, I got up and walked away from the computer. I shut it down. I didn't touch it for about 3 days. I mean, I was spent. And I went outside and put a fire in the fire pit and sat out there and drank beers until I was ready to go to bed, because I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back and touch it. It took 3 days to go back to start cleaning it up.
It wasn't quite that bad with Simon, but it was. I definitely had to step back and really, really think, does he have to die? Well, then I had to go with my gut. My gut has always been that the story tells itself, and it tells itself best when you let it tell itself. And that's where it went. So that's what I went with. Robbie, where are you at? Third book?
Third book should be out in probably another couple weeks. I just crossed over 16,000 words today. I'm in like chapter 8.
Wow.
Of it. It's throwing a little twist to what book 1 and 2 were. So I'm having to do a little bit more research on it. So that's kind of taking me just a little bit longer, because I'm having to do. It's a lot easier when you're writing about something that I mean, y'all know this, but when you're writing about something that you have an extended amount of knowledge about, stuff just comes to you. And then when you start throwing stuff in there that you're not really, I mean, you know about, but you don't know everything about, and you have to start. It kind of slows the process down. So this one's kind of been a little bit slower, but I'm having fun with it. So
I'm gonna have to find the links to that. I think I have to dive in. A 3-book series I think I can jump into without hurting myself. It's when I get the really good story and it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna love this series, and you find out there's 27 books, and it's like, dear God, I'll never finish it. I'll be reading that forever.
well, yeah, there's only 2 right now, so you really shouldn't hurt yourself with it.
That's what I'm saying. If you're working on 3, I should be safe for a little while. Anywho.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hey, look at that. DA just put it in the chat.
Well, I definitely wish I could write them as fast as people read them. I cannot tell you the number of times we publish a book, and 2 days later I get an email. When's the next one?
It's to be all the time.
Yep.
The quickest response I had was within 4 hours of the Kindle going live. I got the first message. Finished it, loved it. When's the next one coming out? I'm like,
holy cow!
Paperback's not even out yet.
4 hours. Well, I haven't had that one yet. But my favorite. Well, how about the reviews? Well, my favorite negative review was, I haven't read this, but. And Amazon was like, oh, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Did you read the first line? I haven't actually read this book, but they're like, yeah, well, people are entitled to their. That's when I stopped looking at review. I look at the numbers. I don't look at the
occasional review, but I don't know. I don't always just sit and read the reviews. But I learned a long time ago, I take negative reviews one of 2 ways. If I see I've got a 1-star review, I'll go look at it. If it's just somebody put a 1-star on there, that's probably just somebody being bitter, trying to tank my rating, because other authors will do that to you.
Yeah.
Don't know why. I don't see the point. I mean, my book sales should have no effect on their book sales, but whatever. Other authors will do it. Or if somebody just writes something like, this book sucked, then it's just somebody venting. They didn't like it. So, okay, it's going to happen. Nobody can write a book literally everybody will like. Somebody's not going to like it.
Exactly.
But then occasionally I'll get one of these like 1-star reviews. Well, the author did this. And then I actually reflect on that. I will look at that and go, are they right? And if they're right, I fix it.
I've done the exact same thing. I've used it when it's done as constructive criticism. I've looked at it, weighed it, and a lot of times I applied it. I had one lady that she wanted her kids to be able to read Monster Squad. And I keep bouncing back to that because I've got the most experience. It's been out for 12 years. But the language, when I first started it, I based this on people I knew. You know, guys that were in SEAL Team 4. They weren't clean mouthed. And then some asshole who claimed to have been a light colonel in special forces, and I can guarantee you that none of the men talk like that. Really? Really?
The Americans don't use the phrase light colonel.
Okay.
Your face, Colonel. However, behind those closed doors, they're dropping F-bombs like an Oxford comma. No.
Yeah, right.
But I did go in.
You'd be amazed at the diversity of the word of the F-bomb.
Oh, I know.
All you need to do is watch Boondock Saints to really see the true diversity of the word.
No joke.
Yep.
Exactly. F-bombs are the potatoes of the word world.
Yep. And
But and to build on what y'all said, you know, as far as the, you know, being able to like more than one type of author, I mean, you know, like I wouldn't have started writing if I hadn't have found DA's books. So any and everybody that I have a chance to even now with my books, I'm like, hey, if you like my book, you really need to check DA's out. And the same thing with yours. I mean, it's even as of now, since I started following you, when I looked at my author page before we came on, it said other people have bought, and your name's down there on my feed now.
That's cool.
And I look at this, you know, we're all out here to help each other out. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You know, people can like my books just as much as they like yours or DA's, or, you know, if Doc decided to write books, I mean, it doesn't matter. We're not competing against each other. DA says this all the time. You know, we're only competing against ourselves to be a better writer than we were the day before.
And it's not like people are just going to buy one book and that's the only book they're ever going to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like we're competing to sell our cars to someone. That's a big purchase.
Right.
If you're dropping $3, $4, $5 on a book, they'll read that in a couple of days and then they want something else. Well,
Yeah, I could point my camera at my shelf and show you. I've got like 1,000 books on that bookshelf, and there's writers from a wide variety of backgrounds. And there's everything from David Drake to Clive Cussler. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for my missus, I never would have gotten. Y'all are married, yeah?
Robbie's divorced. He's the smart one of the bunch.
Well, my wife goes through books like I change socks. She started out, she was reading a lot of historical romance, and somehow it got switched over to like Twilight, you know, teenage monster romance stuff. Well, you always hear that you never take interest in the things that I'm doing or and we're laying in bed one night, she's reading and she giggles, and I thought, well, here's my chance to at least pretend that I'm interested in what she's doing. And I asked her, I said, what are you giggling at? Can I giggle too? And she's like, oh, it was something in this book. I said, well, what was it? Well, it'd take too long to explain. Well, just, you know, shorten it for me. Give me the abridged Reader's Digest version. So it's like a Twilight or some such. And I said, why does this girl care if this vampire loves her? She needs to break the leg off the coffee table and ram it up his undead ass. He's a monster. As it is, the only monster hunters we had was Sam and Dean. They spent more time fighting with themselves, driving that piece of crap Chevy, or having daddy issues. If we wanted monster hunters, we need to get like special forces out there to hunt them down and kill them. She said, why don't you write it? I said, well, maybe I will. That was a mistake, because for the next 6 weeks, that's all I heard. Was, how's my book? Okay. And so I decided I was going to sit down and try it. And I'd probably 50 or 75 times in my life, I had sat down and I was going to write the great American novel just so I could say I'd done it. And I'd get a few pages in and forget about it and delete it. I had an old computer with like a 30 gig hard drive that I had to clean out twice a year, and they'd all get deleted. And one time I wrote a book-length romance novel. I even printed it out and gave it to her. She never read it. So that killed that. You know, if my wife won't read it, who else would? Well, I was cleaning out files and I ran across my story and I was looking at it thinking, what the hell is this? And I opened it and I read it. And I thought, damn, that reads like a real book. I mean, it's got promise. So that's what got me started. I jumped back in, and next thing I know, her book became a trilogy, became a 4-book series, became a 10-book series, and then it just took off from there. Once other people gave me their seal of approval, you know, Omni Domini, you know, I like your stuff, you can actually tell a story, I was hooked. And it took off from there. I can't believe I waited 12 years to dive into a Bigfoot story, because I'd always been a fan. I'd never had an experience. That's the one thing I can't say. I've never had a personal experience. I wished I had. I wished I had that to fall back on. But
I've been into Bigfoot since I was a kid. Like
Yeah.
you said, read everything I could get my hands on, watched every documentary I could watch. And of course, you know, growing up here in the Ozarks, I was out in the woods every chance I got. So I had some weird stuff happen growing up. But I kind of kept that on the down low while I was in law enforcement, because that's the last thing you want to get brought up on the witness stand. Oh, by the way, you look for Bigfoot on the weekends? Yeah, let me destroy your character in front of this jury here.
yeah,
So I kind of kept it quiet, but now that I'm retired, I don't give a damn who knows.
yeah, I can definitely relate. It wasn't something you go around telling people, and that's why the guy at DAExMachiNation, I understand exactly why he acted the way he did when I first asked him. He'd been ribbed so much, and I don't blame him a lick. I really don't.
I caught ribbon from my own family over it.
Yeah, my family knows better than rib me. I'll put them on their ass.
You know, I think my writing career didn't really start taking off until I started writing cryptid stories. Because my zombie stuff and my sci-fi stuff, it didn't sell like gangbusters. And I'm still no Stephen King. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to break any records with my sales, but my sales didn't really start where they are now, until I started writing cryptid stuff about 8 years ago.
Well, when I told my wife that D.A. Roberts wants me to be on this podcast, she's like, "Really?" And I went to your Amazon page, and I'm like, "Well, looky there. I mean, this one's got 900 and something reviews. That's how I measure success, I guess, is the number of reviews, good, bad, or indifferent. It's the number. And my Monster Squad, the first one in it, of course, the first book in any series is going to get the most reviews. Mm-hmm. And the first one in it had, I don't know, 630, I think, 625, something. And it's been out for, 12 years. And Genoskwa just passed it a few days ago. And
that is awesome, brother.
I know. That, to me, that blew my mind. As it was getting closer, I'd go look on Amazon and say, "Hey, honey, it's at this." And she, "Yeah, let's go celebrate." Nope, not till it passes. And get closer and closer, close that gap. Next thing I know, I think it's got 3 reviews more than Return of the Phoenix. That was my first Monster Squad.
Hey, the next time you write like a Genoskwa or a Bigfooty novel, especially if there's a Wendigo involved, you need to have a character in it named Doc who gets his snowmobile violated.
I need to know this.
Y'all are so wrong for that.
I did that in Curse of the Wendigo, and after I wrote the scene, I called Doc. I'm like, "Hey, you've got to read this scene."
It's having a.
That was my line.
That line's in the book, and when I sent that to Doc, there was a solid 2 minutes where all I heard was him laughing on the other end of the book.
Yeah. Hey, while y'all contemplate the romancing of mechanics, I got to go tell my wife good night because she's in Mississippi taking care of Mama.
All right, brother.
Okay.
Be right back. I'll be right back.
What possessed you to a cryptid sexually assault a snowmobile? I guess the muffler was still warm.
It was just ripping it apart, but that's the way he described it on the sat phone. He's like,
Okay.
I'm holed up in an ice cabin in the Montana in the Minnesota woods, and as we speak, there's a very angry Wendigo having angry sex with my snowmobile.
Well, I every once in a while I'll come up with a situation or a one-liner that I think is funny at the time, and then I don't dwell on it, but I'll have a reader come back and hit me with it, and I'm like, that's cool. Where'd you read that? In your book? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I've got the memory of a fruit fly. It seems like
I'm the same way. If I'm gonna when I'm starting, the book I'm currently writing right now is the fourth or fifth book in the Lakeview Man series. Before I started writing it, my wife caught me in my recliner reading the first book of the series. She goes, "Why are you reading the book you wrote?" I'm like, "Shit, woman, I'm refreshing the details. I've read 5 of the damn things. I don't remember them all."
I'm guilty of that. I can't tell you the number of times you go back and you got to reread the last chapter at least, and it's like, wait a minute, did I do this or didn't I? So you go back 2 or 3 more chapters and you read it, and it's like, oh yeah, I did do that. So if I did it again, it'd be repetitive. Can I pull it off? And I had one review come back. The guy, he's like, if you read the first one, you've read them all. How did he put it? Monsters doing wood knocks, stinking up the camp, and spearing helicopters from the sky. Okay. Well, I mean, they're kind of limited. I don't see them out there.
They're down there with a minigun waiting on you to come in with the LZ.
Exactly. But
they're going to throw rocks or trees, one of the two.
And have you seen that video that was supposed to be from the edge of a construction zone? Where
they chucked that tree that was like
a spear. And I thought, holy crap.
Yeah, that could take a chopper down. In fact, I've used that in a book. Them taking a chopper out with a tree.
Well, they actually, mine were a little more evolved. They learned to make spears, but they're basically telephone poles with a point. Once you chunk that, I don't care what you're throwing it at, it's going in it.
Yeah. Unless you're throwing that at the side of a battleship, you're probably going through.
No, you're going to at least put a big hefty dent. But shoot. It surprised me. When I was reading, I guess doing my research on the Genoskwa and the lore, where they would rip the heads off the Indian braves and save the bodies to eat. And I was, you know how hard it is to actually twist a human head off a body?
It takes a lot of force.
But then I watched, what was it? It was chimpanzees that they were eating smaller primates. They'd catch them and they'd twist the head off, rip the head off, and they'd eat the bodies. And I thought, holy shit, if a chimpanzee can do that to a smaller primate, something that's, 9, 10, 11, 12 feet tall, and the strength.
Pounds or more.
Yeah, twisting somebody's head off that'd be like twisting off a tall boy. It's
right.
Nothing. But getting it in the story to where that's what had to have happened, even though the main character or whatever character you're writing doesn't physically see it, doesn't actually see it happen, but to know that's how it had to have happened. That was hard the first couple of times. So then it was just easier to have them witness it and freak out and puke and shit their pants, whatever they're going to do. But just the thought of that. And then the Vlad the Impaler that they did with a few of the captives, that bothered me too. I almost didn't put it in there because I thought, okay, this is just over the top, gratuitous violence. But at the same time, if you're vicious enough, if you're a bastard enough that you want to send a message, that's nothing. Impaling someone on a pike like that you'll do what it takes to get the message across.
Right.
I felt a little bit better putting that in the story, even though I did have one beta reader come back and tell me, whoa, since when is this where Vlad got his idea? Because this is, I said, well, maybe over the top, but it was to make a point. She said, you made it. You definitely made it. I don't want to read that no more. So I tried to tone it down just a little. By the time we get to book 3, they're all, holding hands, singing Kumbaya, hey, smoking weed. They're all good.
So what's next? What's the next book you're working on?
It's going to be 5 in the series. I'm hoping to get, I don't want to say I'm completely burned out, but I'm completely burned out. I want to get 5 done, and then I want to cap it all off with 6. To me, it's like a double trilogy. 6 is a good round number. Oh, thanks, Roxanne.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thanks, Roxanne.
I'm weird when it comes to like my standalones. If it's gonna stay a standalone, it stays that way. My political thrillers with Bobby Bridger, I've got 2. I need a third one. It's got to be a trilogy, at least a trilogy. If it can't be a series, and each one reads as a standalone story. They don't build off of each other really, other than this is how he met these characters. I'd kind of like to do the same thing with Nick. Ain't No Saint Nick. I started book 2, but then I quickly lost interest because Genoskwa was taken off, and that's when I burned myself out on it. But it's either a standalone, a trilogy, a double trilogy, or just a full-out series until it burns itself out. And there's only so much you can do, I think. If you've read it, there's only so much you can do. It's hard to come up with something new as a surprise that, the Mountain Girls can do that throws them for a loop. And a lot of the guys that in the TV series, they have their electronics go to shit when they're out in the field. It happens more often than not, it seems like. Rather than have it be with the animals themselves causing it, I made it, I don't know if the Catskills are actually loaded with lodestone or not, but I made it that way. In my world, it is.
Yeah, in some cases, you've just got to take some liberties as a writer.
Right. And it's the same thing with the caverns. I don't know how many caves, caverns, tunnels, mines, but in my world, there's a lot. And in my world, there's a hot spring. And in my world, and it's somebody that lives up there. I've lived up in that area, and I was trumped around, blah, blah, blah. And there's no hot springs. Yeah, well, the internet says there is because I found it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have used it.
The U.S. Geological Survey, they say that the Mammoth Cave system under Tennessee and Kentucky run from Maine to New Mexico.
I've heard that there's, I don't know if it's true, and I don't know if it actually can be, but I've heard people say you can go from Maine to New Mexico completely underground without seeing the light of day. Now, is that true? I don't know. Is it possible? It seems plausible to me. I mean, just from what little I've seen, I'm no geologist, but from what I've seen, yeah, you might have to spaghettify yourself to get through some cracks to get from one chamber to another. That certainly looks like it's possible.
When I was a kid, they released marker dye into Bennett Springs State Park here in Missouri, and it had radioactive isotopes they could track, and they were waiting for it to surface. They had, National Park Service and people all over the United States waiting for this one signature to come up, and it finally did 2 years later in Alaska.
Whoa! Seriously?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, from a spring here in Missouri.
That's crazy. That's that's a lot of damn territory to cover.
Yeah, that's cool.
So when it comes to what's underground, we don't know. When it comes to old mines, this country is dotted with them.
Oh,
so if you need a mine there in your universe, there's a mine there.
There's a mine there. I'll tell you one thing that I've introduced. Spoiler alert, I guess, for book 5. Are any of you familiar with the sponge bombs that the IDF developed? it's all right. You know how they got the expanding foam like you use around windows and doors. Same principle, but what do they call it? Elephant toothpaste. You know, they mix two chemicals and it just explodes into this huge thing of foam. All right, but immediately after it explodes into foam, it hardens. You can't drill it, you can't shoot it, you can't cut it, you can't burn it. And the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, developed this to seal terrorist tunnels. You know, Hamas or whoever digs a tunnel and tries to pop up in a shopping mall so they can just surprise people. Well, they find these tunnels and they pop off. It's called a sponge bomb, and it blows up and it fills the gap. And God help anybody who gets caught in it, because you're not leaving. You can't cut it.
Done.
You're done. Whether you're in the foam or just a digit in the foam, you're going to lose the digit because you can't get it out. Well, I've introduced that into this book 5 as a military's way of giving the middle finger to the domestics. And that has there's been a couple of disturbing scenes I've had to delete because of it, because I just, that was going a little too far even for me.
I've had to do that. A couple of scenes I've gone back and reread. I was going to ask you about that. Like, have you ever written a scene you just went back and read and went, no, this can't fly?
There was in Sinful, the one that I wrote about the kid that could see other people's evil. It opens in the middle, basically. He's got this guy caught. He's strapped down to an autopsy table, and the kid is cutting off pieces as he's talking to him. And he's like, why are you doing this? He said, the little girl across the street that wears the little blue dress. And the guy's like, how could you know about that? I've never touched her. He said, but you thought about it. And in about 3 weeks, you were going to. And he's like, what? No, I would never. And I had to go back and rewrite it because it, as a father, I've got 7 kids. A lot of people don't know that. I got 2 sets of twins. We've got 17 grandkids on the ground.
Damn.
Yeah, very prolific.
Any of y'all got any TVs?
We do. Just at the time, we didn't have cable.
Well, you had them 3 channels.
Oh, we had 2.
That explains why I'm the youngest of 11.
There you go. No, I blame my wife because I married a really hot woman, and
Yeah.
it was hard to keep my hands from this. Okay, off of that subject. No, I wrote some scenes that, as a father, what's the absolute worst possible thing you could imagine? It kind of turns your stomach. So I toned it down a little bit, toned it down a little bit more, and toned it down a little bit more, and I put it in there as a justification because this guy is literally being emasculated while he's tied down to this autopsy table. And, you know, here's a wet splat, and it's his left testicle. And
The sound no guy wants to hear.
yeah, exactly. But as he's carving this guy, he's telling him, I saw what you did or what you were going to do when you did it, and it got a little too graphic. So I cut that out. And even then, a good friend of mine, he's a writer, lives about 20 miles from here. We're in this little writers club. We get together, and we have meetings and stuff. And he read the opening line, the opening paragraph or chapter of this, the forward, whatever. And he's like, dude, this is brutal. How can this? I had to step away like 3 times, and I was thinking, holy cow, that's after I trimmed it down like 4 times and took out the really bad stuff. And he's like, I don't even want to know where your mind goes. Like, I don't even like going where my mind goes. I was a submariner for shit's sake. We're twisted people to begin with.
You were a submariner?
Yeah.
Dude, after the show, do not log off. I've got to pick your brain.
Okay, yeah.
But that's like a scene out of one of Richard Marcinko's books. One of his last books he wrote.
Himo Dick was the best. I love that
there
guy.
there was a scene in there where he had this girl. I can't remember what her name was in the book, but they were interrogating the guy, and she went that route on him. I've got the book in there on my bookshelf. I'd have to get it.
Is it one of the Road Warrior books?
Yes, it's one of those. It's one
I've
of
got them packed
yeah.
away.
I've got every one of them in there on my bookshelf. But there was a scene, and he was trying to get the guy to talk. He was like, "You need to tell me. You need to tell me what we need to know, or I'm gonna turn." Because she was like part Indian, I think.
Yeah.
And he was like, "I ain't telling you shit." And he's like, "Okay, fair warning." And he turned her loose, and she
Yeah.
emasculated him.
Coin purse, huh?
Oh yeah.
Out of used elbow skin.
Hey, let's talk about some snowmobiles getting violated. This is giving me the really.
Well,
Boys, I should tell you some of the scenes I've cut. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it live air.
that's why. I mean, I had to cut out what this guy was going to do to that kid. I had to. It was disturbing to me, and I wrote it. And then, even after I cut all that out, to find that it was so disturbing to others, but it opens with that. That's the shocker. And then when you go to the next, it starts out. He's just a kid working in a coffee shop, selling donuts and driving home in this piece of crap car, slides off the road, has an accident, and it builds from there. And at the time, I had people read it and say, "Wow, that was you hooked me at the beginning." I don't know that I could have stayed to read the rest of it as it built up had it not been for that. So, yay. I don't know. Yeah, man, I had a thought, and it's like a fart in a whirlwind. It was
I know that
dumb.
feeling.
Oh, one of the characters, like I said, I base my characters off of people I know, and much Grunt Hilda.
Grunt Hilda was the name of the name I gave to a female Bigfoot in one of the books. Well, someone told Parkland, I think that Bigfoot was about to take you to the prom. He's like, hey, it would have been totally different if I'd have rocked Grunt Hilda's world if I'd had a beard trimmer, some lip gloss, and a jar of strawberry preserves. Wait, it was raspberry. Yeah, right, raspberry.
Yeah, raspberry would work.
Yeah, beard trimmer, some lip gloss, and a jar of raspberry preserves. Oh, Marco. You know, that's one character. I wrote him as a throwaway character. He was just going to be a character that got mentioned in one particular book. But the more I wrote him, I just liked that he was a smartass. And so, but then I would like write him into scenes. And if you ever writing a scene and just stop and lean back and go, where the hell did that come from?
Yes, all the time.
His mouth, I don't know where it came from. I'm like, I didn't think of that. Where did that come from?
Because I base my characters off people I know a lot of times, and I had people ask me, where did that come from? I don't know. It developed. I was just as surprised writing it as you were reading it.
Well, if you read any of DA and Robbie's books, and you hear the conversation between our characters, you're hearing the conversation right here.
Yeah.
These two are just a wealth of research. I just listen to what they say, and sometimes it finds its way into a book.
It's
what,
that
what
golden.
was the comment, Doc? We was talking about somebody said something to me on one of our Facebook pages, said that they love the banter between Rick and Doc, and I said, well, the banter between Rick and Doc is a lot like the banter between Doc and Jed, which is a lot like the banter between Doc and Robbie. It's all real world stuff. I mean, most of the stuff that DA writes that Jed and Doc say are the same stuff that me and Doc say, which is the same stuff that Doc and Rick say in my books. I mean, it's real world stuff.
They're zinging each other constantly, and I'm just like, oh, this is gold.
And it just lends more credibility, and it makes it more readable. You know what I mean? And it gives the reader buy-in, emotional investment into those characters. I think
it's not just more readable; it's relatable.
Absolutely.
Because I guarantee you, those readers know people that are exactly like that,
and they get that emotional investment in there, and then they're hooked.
Everybody's got that one friend that you have to warn others about before you introduce them, or you have to tell them play nice before you introduce them to the others.
We're all three of those friends.
Yeah, right here. That's me. And I'll be the first to admit there is no filter between here and here. I've
I have a
got
filter. It just doesn't engage.
no. Well, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. The clutch is burnt out.
Me and Doc was driving somewhere, and I said something. I looked at him. I said, "Did I say that out loud?" He goes, "Yep, you sure did."
Oh yeah.
Oh, geez, I could imagine the four of us.
Oh yeah. You throw in a little alcohol, and it can get X-rated pretty fast.
Nice campfire.
Like we need alcohol for it to do that.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, mine's non-alcoholic iced tea.
It would get spicy.
Yeah, there's no tea in mine.
Well, I had one character that I based off. I was a member of the 5-7 forum for a long time. I made a lot of friends on there. And this was before Facebook. And one of them, his handle was Slippy. And I like Slippy. We were friends. We made friends online, and I made him a character in one of my political thriller books with Bobby Bridger. And while I was talking to Jay, the guy that made the silver ammo, he asked me, did Slippy ever tell you how he got that nickname? I said, no. Well, he was attached with one of the special forces groups out in the desert, and they had some old boy that they were questioning, and Slippy took his arm and slathered it with pork lard and did a colon deep dive on this old boy, determined he was going to get the answers. Now, they got the answers they needed. Slippy got in a lot of trouble, but he didn't get demoted. He didn't get busted. And I don't remember all the details. My mind was stuck on that picture of him elbow deep in this guy's colon, and this guy screaming and cursing and finally telling them what they needed to know. But it saved lives, and that was the point. So I applied that true backstory to my character. And I've gotten, I don't know how many emails saying, oh, I laughed so hard when they told Slippy's back, and I didn't have the heart to tell him. That's a true story, y'all. That happened. And he's one of those that I think he'd have made a good submariner because his mind is twisted.
Heck yeah.
That's a good way to ruin a party. You're telling that story.
Trust me, it's probably not the worst thing that's ever been told on this show.
True. I mean, you could call him Crisco too. I mean, that works too.
Yeah. Well, they called him Slippy, but it was Slippy Fist was his actual name.
Well, I say that because don't you have in book one? Isn't there a Crisco in book one of Genoskwa?
Yeah. But I didn't think about it.
When you were telling that story, I was like, "There's a Crisco."
No. The guys in Bobby Bridger. That's my political thriller. That's the ones where I took the guys from the gun form. No, the Genoskwa characters, they were all from Phalanx Press Group. It's like a fan club or something, and they've been deleted off Facebook. I don't know how many times because they're like us and they don't filter shit, and they're of a certain mindset, and apparently Facebook doesn't appreciate that so much, so they did away with them. And they came back.
I've been a part of that group a few times.
Okay, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now the name of the group is Get Zucked because we got zucked the last time.
We're in that group.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All in that
That's
group.
what I'm talking about.
We're
That's
all
where,
in there.
Yeah.
that's where Jim Crisco come from. I took the guys that I interacted with the most. I needed a set number of characters, and of course I added Monty Smalls just because I wanted to be able to use that line. And one thing I do, when I ask people, can I use you as a character? If they say yes, I don't. There's no contracts to sign or nothing. Them telling me over Messenger is good for me. And then whenever the book is published, as soon as the paperbacks, Tracy always sends me a box for promotional stuff. First thing I do is I autograph it and get it in the mail to them. They get a copy because they were a character in it. And Albert Brees, the pilot in book 3. Book 3. Anyway,
Genoskwa 2.
3, I think. Yeah, 3. It's where I introduced Albreeze.
The one that the spear went through the Lexan and
Yeah.
crashed. Yeah, it was 2.
Well, that's book 2, but no, the pilot that comes in with Patricia.
Oh, the SFF. Okay, that's right. Al. Okay, I was thinking the actual copter that flew. That was the other guy. That was but I know who you're talking about now. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he was actually my best friend when I was like from ages 5 to 9, 5 to 10, and then my parents moved me from California out here to Oklahoma. And from the time I've known him, his goal in life was to be a pilot for a commercial airline. Well, he is. He flies for American now, and he was a helicopter pilot in the Navy. And we connected, not on Facebook. He wasn't on there. On LinkedIn. I happened to, every once in a while I'd search for his name somewhere. I found him on LinkedIn. We connected, and he was tickled pink that hell yeah, I could use him as a character. Yeah, thanks, Wyatt. Al is a good guy. He's not British. He didn't care that I made him British, but he is a really wholesome guy. I was glad to be able to connect with him again. I'd used my other best friend was a kid named Mario Gomez, and I needed someone with a Spanish-sounding name to be a bad guy in my second Bridger book. And I'd connected with Mario, probably 10 years ago, reconnected with him, got his email, but then we lost track of each other. I lost his email. So when I needed a bad guy, I looked him up again, and he's like, yeah, you can use me as a character. Why am I going to be a bad guy? I want to be a good guy. So I kind of did with him what I did with Simon. He starts out, he is the bad guy, but he did it for love. And I started the third book in the political thriller stuff, and Mario is on his way to becoming one of the good guys. And I did that just for him because he wanted to be a good guy. But using people that I know, it makes it so much easier to give each character their own voice.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And sometimes that voice, you have to be careful what comes out of it. Bless you. Bless you.
Bless you, sweet pickles. Bless you again.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I had to mute my mic.
Hey, you're lucky you only get them in 3s. I get sneezing fits that sometimes go on for 20 or 30 minutes. Yeah. And it's not just little sneezes. It's those big rafter rattling dad sneezes.
The ones that throw your back out sneeze.
Yes. Yes.
I did that the other day in a truck, about wrecked my damn truck.
It's the worst trying to sneeze while you're driving because you can't force your eyes to stay open while you're sneezing.
Mm-mm. 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 All right, dude.
So do you plan on setting any of your stories underwater?
I don't know.
Like a lake cryptid or something along those lines?
I thought you meant like based on a submarine or something. You know, they did.
Or that. I mean, submarine novels are really cool. Well, okay, some of them are. Some of them are just bad.
I'm trying to think. Was it one of the Walking Dead spinoffs? Started out on a submarine.
Yeah, the one where Daryl whenever it ended up in France or somewhere in Europe.
No, it was separate.
I hadn't watched it since Glenn and Abe got
redheaded dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then there was one that I've only seen 4 episodes of it. I don't have AMC Plus. Thank you, Billy. I appreciate that. They started off on a submarine, then it ends up wrecked beach somewhere, and the guy gets out and he's trying to make his way home. You're really, really, really limited to having something going on a submarine. Not just because it's a confined space, but because there is absolutely no privacy. Other than when you're dropping a deuce, you're never really alone. For something, you couldn't have a murder mystery on a submarine because there's just too many people that in such a small space, they would see or notice something. Now, that's not to say you couldn't, But for somebody who's been on subs and has lived in them, there would have to be a certain amount of suspension of disbelief that I think a submariner that read it would be like, yeah, bullshit. Maybe it could happen, but I kind of, with the exception of my children's books, the erotica, and the political thrillers, everything else is pretty much not cryptid, but monster, you know, some kind of supernatural character. Yeah, I have a werewolf on a submarine, but how's he gonna know it's full moon, right? It's not like,
Unless it's a classic werewolf that can shift any time.
oh yeah. In my world, in my universe, it's the natural born werewolves that can shift at will. The ones that are bitten or infected shift at the full moon. But even the ones that can shift at will have to shift on a full moon. So I don't know. Maybe they're looking through a periscope and be like, "What the hell? Oh shit, that's a full moon." And you know, but by the time they got through shredding everybody, because nope, they're on a boomer boat. There's only one person that has a weapon, and that's the guy.
See, that's what's just not even talking about the submarine anymore, but just talking about things like where that's the beauty of something like that, because the three of us could all write books on werewolves and be completely, totally different.
Yep.
But it's okay because there is so much lore and so much you can just put your own spin on it. Because in mine, the main character, he had to shift the first full moon after he was attacked, and he was a complete, total wild animal, had no control, nothing during that first transformation. And if he killed somebody during that first transformation, that sets him on the dark path. Basically, the premise is the two wolves, the Cherokee lore of the two, which wolf survives, the one you feed. So it's all about the struggle he has between, wanting to have that power and wanting to use it for good, but not going too far over to the other side on it and all that stuff. So, but once he controls it, he's able to switch or shift anytime he wants to.
Yeah, well, supernatural is something similar. You can be born into a family of werewolves, but until you make your first kill, you don't shift. That was one of the lores that were out there. And in mine, just to be different, when you met your fated mate, the mate that the fates say is they mate for life, and this is your fated mate, and you can sleep with whoever you want. But when you meet your fated mate, you see them when they shift. They don't turn into the halfling that standing on two legs. They look like an actual timber wolf. And that's the sin hunting an underwater cryptid after it's attacked a cruise ship. Yeah, could be.
That would be kind of a cool story. I'd read it.
Well, the only problem I would see with it is, you don't have windows. You don't have, maybe in Hollywood they have windows and spotlights and you can see. You get under so many feet of water, it's black. You ain't seeing nothing. I don't care how big a light you got.
You'd have to have Jonesy from Hunt for Red October to track a biological.
Yeah, you'd have to have it. Had to be sonar. And don't get me wrong,
damn good on sonar to track.
There are guys that can. They can. I sat some sonar watches my first cruise, and these guys, of course, when they qualify a certain watch, they have to go into it really in depth. Me, I was just there to help them be able to go into three shift rotation. So I was filling in. I was filling a blank. And
thank you, sir.
You can tell by listening the sound of a prop. How fast the rotation and how many blades are on it. You get 120
screws versus low speed screws.
Yep. And I can't believe I remembered that. That was 30 some years ago. But it could be done. It could be done, especially if you had a fast attack boat. I rode boomers. I was a missile tech. I worked with the nuclear missiles, and so every boat that I was on had to have the missile tubes, the bird's end. It's a much bigger ship. Personally, I think we got fed better. we had some of the best cooks in the Navy, and we did eat well. Christmas was prime rib. Halfway night they had the big pizza party, but they also had the steaks and the lobster. And halfway night was like its own celebration because it was all downhill.
I'm really starting to think I joined the wrong branch.
Yeah, I think you did too. I
hear about Air Force and Navy having good food. I'm like, you guys had hot food?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had great food when we weren't out in the field. But when we were out in the field, we were eating with the Army.
MREs.
We were eating with the Army. So we got what they got.
You know, another good plot for a submarine would be the basic plot of the movie Alien. Something gets loose on the ship at depth and they can't surface.
You'd have to break something so they couldn't surface. Because
Or they're under orders not to surface.
If things got bad, even against orders, I think somebody would. They got what's called the chicken switch up in control, and it's literally a big lever. And when you do it, it's what's called an emergency blow. When you see the clips of a submarine that's coming up out of the water, that's an emergency blow. They set the planes for rapid ascent. They hit emergency blow, and it's like dumping these huge canisters of air into the ballast tank. So you're positively buoyant just that fast, and they'll turn for I don't know, probably half power or something to drive you up as you're also being buoyancied up, and that's why the ship will literally come up out of the water and then slap when it
it breaches like a freaking whale.
Yeah, they do. And that's why you'll also know when along the back, when it does land, if you will, when it levels out in the water, you'll see it looks like steam blowing up out of it, like when a whale blows and it clears the water from its blowhole. You'll see that along the length of the ship too. That's where the excess air is coming out, still at force, and it's a beautiful thing to see. It throws rainbows in the sky and everything, but. Yeah, somebody, unless they could lock that out somehow, or there was a mechanical issue, somebody would definitely, in a oh shit situation, hit that chicken switch. I can almost guarantee it. But still, an alien type story. Yeah, I think they did when they were USS Dallas did emergency blow in Red October. I think they did. When the torpedo was launched. If Gray Lady Down is the correct word for lost sub, I have no idea. I'm sorry, Josh. I don't know, brother. It's been 3 decades since I was on a sub, and I did earn my dolphins. I did qualify ships, but I don't know if Gray Lady Down is a true code for that. I wish I did know now. I could look it up.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you myself.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because there's a movie called Gray Lady Down, and that's the code they use in the movie. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I legit wanted to know if that was the code they gave when they lose a sub.
I have no idea.
Any way you could find out?
Yeah, there's some people that I've touched base with that I used to know that they put in the 25, 28 years. There was one guy on my first boat that he wasn't in my division. He was, I don't even know what his rating was, to be honest with you. I think he was in electronics tech. He was a chief, and thank you, Wyatt. Appreciate that. He literally took me under his wing. I guess he could tell that I'd reached something. I don't remember the exact specifics, but I was in a pretty low spot. I was on the outs with some of the guys in my division. I was on the outs with some of the other, because I was constantly trying to earn the badge of being a hot runner. If you can qualify in your first patrol, you were a hot runner, and it never failed. I am the king of bad timing. I would show up to ask for a walkthrough or a checkout on something when they're running a drill, or they're having some mechanical issue, or there was always something going on that nobody should be back there asking anyone questions, but that's when I'd pop in. It's like I had radar that could tell, is this the worst possible moment to go bother these people? It is? Let's go. And I'd grab a tray and fill it with glasses of bug juice, and I'd head back there thinking, I'm going to butter these guys up with a drink, and I'm going to ask them questions of blah, 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 blah. And Wally Beaver got his ass handed to him. So, yeah, I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Part of it being that their clutch is disengaged between the brain and the mouth. But rather than browbeating me or threatening me. But this guy took me under his wing and sat down, and in a very calm and for a writer, I'm horrible at finding the right words. He explained things to me to where it made sense. Ship's ventilation on a submarine is one of the most important things there is, and it's also one of the most complex. And he sat down with me in an afternoon over a cup of coffee, and by the time he was done, one of the call questions they'll ask you is, you are a seagull fart outside the ship. I want you to blow in Chief Malich's bunk. And you have to tell him how it comes in through the snorkel, what valve it goes through, where it goes through this, it goes to this filter, it goes through this damper down this line, it goes to this cutoff, it goes to this and there, and then bam, right into Chief Malich's bunk. And he did such a good job that they only asked me one ventilation question in my entire ship's checkout. I was like, no, please, let's go back. I like these ones. And they're like, no, obviously, ship's ventilation. And Chief Brunson was his name. I tried for years to track him down. I tried the Shipmate Finder, all these different apps and programs and stuff, never could. And one day, just for shits and giggles, I put his name in on Facebook, and guess who I found?
That's awesome.
And, I connected with him, and he ended up retiring, I think, as a Master Chief. He was wanting to get out as an E7, and he made E8 just before his time was up, and they convinced him to re-enlist. And so he re-enlisted to keep his 8, and it's just a few more years. What's the damage? And before he knew it, it was the same thing for 9. I think he put in like 28 years or something. Wow. Great guy. I mean, I kind of wish at the times he was my chief. Of course, if I worked for him, I might not think the same thing. But I thought the world of him. And when I connected with him, I was like, are you the same Chief Brunson that was on this ship at this time? And he said, yeah, I was on the Adams for a while. I don't remember exactly when. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure you're the guy. And I just wanted to tell you what an impact you made on me, because if it hadn't have been for him, I don't think I could have qualified. And of course, he was touched. And after I sent him my boot camp picture, he was like, oh, yeah, I remember this kid. And we shared a bunch of stories, touched base. And then I started following him on Facebook. Now, he's probably, in his 60s, but he's into like heavy duty weightlifting and stuff. And he doesn't look anything like he did back then. But it was just great to be able to touch base with the guy. I found someone that I hadn't seen in over 30 years, but had made and the thing is, he's one of those guys that he does that. He makes a huge impact on these young sailors' lives, but it doesn't stick with him. He's just like, he treats everybody the same. So I can't imagine how many other people are out there wishing they could find Chief Brunson just to tell him thanks. I really appreciate what you did. Good guy. And I ended up using him as a character in one of my books too. Just a minor character, but I always felt like he should have been, the next Rambo or some shit. Just as a thanks, let's make you 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Yeah. Maybe someday.
You never know.
Nah, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
That's right.
Sure.
Amen.
I got a story one time from a sonar tech. Mm-hmm. And he was sonar operator on a I don't remember which boat it was, but I know it was a 688 boat. I don't know which boat it was, but he was a sonar operator.
Los Angeles.
On Los Angeles class, yeah. And he said they were leaving, I believe it was San Francisco Harbor, and he picked up a contact behind them in the harbor.
Behind them? Baffled?
Yeah, something behind them. And so he's like listening to it, and he said, I didn't want to call the Cobb over and tell him, hey, I think I got something following it, until I was sure. He said, and then when I finally realized, yes, there's something back there, I called Cobb over and said, hey, we got something behind us. And he said, what is it? So they started to track on it. They started listening, and he said, this is biological. There is something behind us, biological. And the chief's like, it's probably a whale. Just keep an eye on it. It's probably a whale. 3 days later, it was still behind them and had never surfaced.
Oh, wow.
And he said from the sound of the contact, he estimated its size at roughly the same size as the boat itself.
Now, that's not where I thought that story was going.
He said, we never saw it, so I can't tell you what it was, but I can tell you it was alive, and it was as big as the submarine.
Sounds like a whale to me.
But it never surfaced for air.
Okay.
In 3 days, it never went up.
What was that shark that was the size of the one they made a movie about?
The
Megalodon?
Megalodon. I knew it was something like that.
They said when they got out near the Philippines, it went deep.
There you go.
It basically left and it pulled out behind them and went deep. Somewhere out toward the Marianas.
Wow, that does sound like a Meg to me. I mean, I know they're extinct, but that sounds like because they were a deep water.
They really are. There's just not that many of them. Plus, what do we really know about the deep ocean?
Right, exactly. We know more about the moon. We know more about Mars than we do the depths of our own ocean. That's crazy.
Yeah, why is it that in the early 60s, NASA switched from ocean exploration to space exploration?
Because it's easier.
Well, the ocean's right here. You don't got to travel a billion miles to get to another celestial object. The ocean's right here.
But look at those guys that tried to go down and look at the Titanic using a Nintendo 64 controller.
Yeah.
Just because it's closer doesn't mean it's easier.
Right. Yeah, the pressure at that kind of depth, oh my God.
Yeah, I
But
could.
we have the technology to get that deep.
Yes.
You're not going to build it in your garage with a Nintendo 64 controller.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think. The first DSRVs, in fact, the first one I don't think was an actual vehicle. It was just like a ball that they dropped. Wasn't Jacques
Bathysphere.
Cousteau? Yeah, bathysphere. Wasn't Jacques Cousteau one of the first set a depth record in a bathysphere?
Yep.
And they.
I'm
Go ahead,
sorry, Robbie's sound is out. He's going to be right back.
Oh, we finally lost Robbie's sound. Sorry, Robbie.
I'm sorry, Heath. I wasn't trying to interrupt you, brother.
No, you're good. You're good. I you said it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Jerry the Mouse unplugged him. No, I was going to say something. I forgot what I was saying.
At the bathysphere going to depth.
Yeah, it was before that. I got off on that.
The DSRV.
Mm-mm. Oh, when you were talking about something following them, in Scotland is where we refitted out of Holy Loch, and they got fishing boats in and out, and they're not supposed to drop nets within a certain distance, and they know they're not, but they do it anyway because that's where the fish are, and it's not something that's like, yeah, we did it, oh well. I think it was my second cruise. They came in and asked sonar, do you hear anything at such and such? And they said, that's in our baffles, I can't tell you. And they said, all right, well, we're going to be making a turn here shortly. I want you to check here and see what you hear. And you listen because, yeah, that's a ship sinking. And supposedly, I don't know if it's true, supposedly, I mean, because a surface ship with a fishing net, they only got so much power. And this is a nuclear-powered submarine. And it's huge. It really is. As small as it feels inside, it's huge. And you get caught in a fishing net. If they don't cut away that net, which is expensive, you're going to drag them down. And that's what I thought you were going to say happened if somebody had got hung up on that Los Angeles class and they pulled it down. But for it to be something biological that never surfaced, that definitely has me thinking, what do
you think about the Navy's cover story when that Seawolf class struck a previously unknown mountain? And they immediately, after that Seawolf class limped its way to Guam, they immediately pulled every one of them from service for an upgrade.
Okay, that I didn't know about. To hit something underwater that was previously unknown, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but if it's going to hit something, it is probably natural. I'm not going to say they ran into another sub. Although it is possible, because when you're listening for a submarine, you're not listening for sound. You're actually listening for a hole in the water, an absence of sound for the most part. Especially when they're running. If you got the old World War II boats, the old diesel electrics, when they ran on full electric, it was a hole in the water. It was a blank spot. Could they have hit another sub? Yes. Could they have hit something, a previously unknown mountain? Of course. They've got a lot of the under ocean is mapped, but you can only map it with things like sonar, lidar, or whatever. You're not going to catch everything. Now, if they were deep enough that they were dangerously close to the bottom and there was some kind of rock outcrop, yeah, it could happen, because stuff like that can get missed really easily, especially when you're mapping an entire freaking ocean. That's why there's certain, it's kind of like you guys do any off-roading? You know, they have trails. They have trails that are set up. That's true. Maybe they did hit something that wasn't there the day before. You've got certain trails. Yeah, you're out in the wild and there's no roads, but there are trails where others have gone before you, and you know it's passable. And maybe for them, maybe not for you. It depends on the mods you make to your rig. But you know it's a trail that others have taken, and depending on your modifications, you should be, and the class of the trail, you should be able to make it. Well, imagine going off that trail 20 feet. No. Sorry, Ryan. Not that I know of.
Pretty sure Crazy Ivan was made up by Tom Clancy.
No, that's a real thing. Crazy
Really?
Ivan, real thing. Russians are really, that's where it came from. It was a real thing. They'll be tooling along, fat, dumb, and happy, and all of a sudden, just out of the blue, and they'll be going, and I'm just guessing here, maybe 20 knots, and all of a sudden they'll increase speed and then do a Crazy Ivan. They're going to clear their baffles. They're going to see, is there anything behind us? And that's why the movie Red October, Submariners absolutely freaking loved it, with the exception of the cook shooting. He's climbing up in the superstructure, and there is no superstructure. I'm sorry. It's maybe 12 inches of cable trays. No, that was. But you got to give Clancy a little benefit of the doubt, unless he'd actually he got a lot of his information from Jane's fighting ships, and people are like, "Oh, he's got classified information." He got it from Jane's. There's all kinds of classified information in Jane's.
That, and he looked at what the government was willing to admit they could do and just extrapolated.
Exactly, and he did an excellent job. That was, of course, being a submariner, and that movie came out. That's what got me hooked on his books. But yes, Crazy Ivan is a real thing. The closest we ever come to something like that, I was actually setting sonar, and I'm like, minding my own business. I'm listening for whale farts, and one of the pieces of equipment they have, and I know I'm not giving off anything classified because I only remember like 1% of any of the details. But it's like, they call it watching the microwave. It looks like a giant microwave. And each ship has different equipment that gives off different frequencies, and it travels through the water. You can pick it up. And they picked up a frequency, and they're looking at it, and they're going, what in the actual fuck is that? I've never seen it before, and it's all by itself. What could this be? So they go to their handy-dandy little guide, and they're flipping through it, and they're like, oh my God, this is an Akula-class submarine. And like, what? That's like the Russian, at that time, the Russian Navy's biggest, baddest, meanest, this is a wolf with two sets of teeth. And I mean, pandemonium broke out. Sonar techs were crawling out of the freaking bilges and rushing, and the sonar shack is tiny. You take a one sink toilet bathroom, a half bath, and that's roughly the size of the sonar shack. Before I knew it, there were 9 people in there pushing me out because this was a big thing. And our skipper, Commander Duran, man, had balls of steel. The story goes that once he heard that there was possibly an Akula, he went active. So sonar goes active, ping, there it is. Give me a second ping. The only time you want a second ping is to lock a target. Did a second ping, and he had him shoot a water slug. That's where you take a torpedo tube. You don't put a torpedo in it. You flood it with water, and then you shoot it out using the same pressure you would for a torpedo. And it sent to anybody on sonar listening, it sounds like somebody's shooting a torpedo at us. They can hear the doors cycle. They can hear the pressurize. And then they can hear the shutters open, and then bam, they hit it with the pressure to shoot it out. And what does he do? He's standing in torpedo room with a damn Black & Decker drill, and he holds it to the hull and goes, Zzz! So now it sounds like there's a hot fish in the water. Now, those of us who have an idea what's going on are thinking, oh, fuck, we are dead. He just shot a blank at a fucking Akula. We are toast. And the next thing we know, he's on the horn calling sonar, what do you hear? So we hear somebody making for hell or high water at very high rate of speed. If we did shoot a torpedo, it would be outrunning it. We're like, cool. So he goes back up, he surfaces, he radios, hey, we found an Akula here. And then we sunk back down. And the way I'm told the story finishes is several days later when we surfaced for radio messages, command said, no, that wasn't an Akula. There wasn't nothing there. The Akula is actually supposed to be somewhere else. And our commander's like, yeah, right. And then when we got back, I mean, it was a swarm, a team of people come down, ripped through everything in sonar, took all the printouts, everything, took his deposition, all that, and then they disappeared. It never happened. That was my second patrol. Shit your pants. Oh my God, I can't believe he did that story. And a lot of it I had to get secondhand from other people. Like, what did the captain do? Did he held a drill to the fucking hull? Are you serious? The torpedo was like, yeah, we were down there sweating blood. He's down there with a grin on his face, holding a drill to the hull. And I'm thinking, Jesus, this. And he wasn't a West Pointer. The guy had a degree in Russian. That was his degree. Russian. I don't know. That's what he told us one time. That was his degree. He's not an engineer. He wasn't a West Pointer. But damn, he had balls of steel.
That's cool.
That's not just balls. That's basketballs.
No, yeah. I don't know how that man. How do you walk with balls? Seriously. Oh, crazy.
Boys, after the 2 hour mark, we're going to start winding things down. We generally go right about 2 hours. I want to thank Heath for being on the show. You guys, I got his links up in the chat. I just put them up just a minute ago. Make sure you go by and download his books and give him some love, and swing by HeathStallcup.com and check that out. And just show some love, and a big shout out to an awesome writer and even better dude. And we will definitely going to look to having him back sometime in the not so distant future, because this has been a hoot and a half.
Oh yeah.
But as we're winding things down, like I do at every show, I want to take a moment to talk about the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So reach out to friends and family that have served in any capacity, even first responders, anybody that's worn a uniform to keep us safe and keep us free. They've earned our respect, and they deserve more than they're getting. So, folks, reach out to your friends and family that have worn a uniform. Doesn't matter what uniform or where they served or how they served. Reach out to them, because you never know. Some of these folks might be fighting demons they don't tell you about. And we should not let the hard days win. But unfortunately, at least 22 times a day, they're winning somewhere. So let's all do our part and try to get 22 a day down to 0, where it belongs to be. And with that, I want to tell you guys, give a big shout out to go check out Robbie's books. Robbie's got an author page on Facebook, but we've got the link up. I believe it's recently been up.
The new author page is on Instagram.
What's that?
The new author page is on Instagram.
Okay, I don't have that link, so we'll get that up for the next one. Mike from Abnormal is going to bed. Good night, Mike.
Mike.
Not y'all.
And swing by Heath, check him out, and make sure you go over and show some love to Dark Angel Medical, because they're packaging birthdays in boxes, and they have 203 confirmed saves now.
204.
204. Hell yeah.
Congrats.
That's 204 people still drawing breath that wouldn't be if it weren't for one of Doc's kits. So check out Dark Angel Medical Kit. Dark Angel Medical, and don't forget to use code Cryptic20 to get 20% off your entire purchase. And if you're HSA or FSA affiliated, you can use those credits to not only take classes but to get your kits. Check them out. You can even sizzle the kits now, so you don't have to hurt all at once. I've got multiple Dark Angel kits, and when I was on duty, I never went anywhere without at least one. I had one on my plate carrier, had one on my duty belt, and had two in the car. And I'm telling you, I would not trust my life to any other kits, because you can buy cheaper kits on Amazon, but I wouldn't trust my life to cheaper.
Right.
Because you never know, the life you save might be your own or the life of someone else. And a great thing about Dark Angel Medical is if you use that kit to save a life, document it, and they will replace the contents of that kit for free for life.
Oh, wow. Good job, Doc.
Thank you, sir.
And while you're checking out stuff, go by DARoberts.net or head over to Amazon and check out my books as well. But definitely go over and check out Genoskwa by Heath there, or any of his other books. There's a laundry list. He's got 50 books in print, folks. So while you're waiting for the next one of mine to come out, I think he can keep you occupied for a little while. So definitely check him out. And we're going to close the show out. Heath, stick around after we shut down off the air. But folks, we're going to close the show out with a toast. And it's one we've been doing for a while. Let me get my hat off. Try not to blind y'all with the glare. But it's from an old Irish drinking song. And it's a beautiful tune, but it's not just talking about saying goodnight to folks at the end of the day. It's talking about saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. So for all those friends we've lost along the way under those folded flags, this is for y'all. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all. Good night, Slàinte, and thank you guys for being with us.
Slàinte.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.